Hey, what are you doing parked here? Whose vehicle is this?
It's mine, officer. I'm just waiting for my son to finish school.
Waiting for your son?
Yeah.
In a car like this, huh? You got ID? Because people don't just sit outside of school in vehicles like
I
this.
already told you I'm here to pick up my child.
Well, until I figure out what's going on, you're not going anywhere. So you can either cooperate or this...
A man in a suit jacket, hands visible, standing in a school parking lot, in broad daylight, in front of an elementary school sign, and there are already 2 officers behind him. This is Adrien Cole, father of an 8-year-old, waiting for school pickup, just like every other parent here, except Officer Grayson decided he looked suspicious. What Grayson doesn't know, what he can't see, is that the man standing in front of him holds the power to end careers, including his, because Adrien Cole is the city's district attorney, and Grayson's department, currently under his office's review. Adrien knows exactly who he is. He hasn't said a word. Why? That answer will change how you see this entire story. If you already feel something watching this, you're in the right place. Hit like and please don't forget to subscribe. The school bell hasn't rung yet. Lucas Cole is still inside, and his father is standing in a parking lot with 2 officers behind him and a third one talking. Adrien hasn't raised his voice. He hasn't moved suddenly. He hasn't done anything wrong. So why hasn't he just told them who he is? That question is about to be answered. Grayson steps closer. His voice drops, the way voices drop when someone wants to sound final. Sir, you're being detained. You're coming with us to the precinct. The parking lot goes quiet. A robin lands on the school fence. A crossing guard looks over. 3 parents near the entrance stop talking. Adrien looks at Grayson for a long moment. Then he does something nobody expects. He smiles. Not a nervous smile. Not an apologetic smile. A quiet, certain smile. The kind that belongs to someone who already knows how this ends. He bends down. Slowly, he picks up his briefcase from the ground. He places it on the hood of his own SUV. He presses the latches. They snap open, 1, then 2. Grayson's hand moves toward his belt. Adrien doesn't flinch. He reaches inside. He pulls out a single leather wallet. He opens it flat. He places it face up on the hood and slides it, calmly, deliberately, across the metal toward Grayson. Grayson looks down. He reads it once. He reads it again. His jaw tightens. The color shifts in his face. Not red, not pale. Something in between. Something that looks like a man watching the ground open beneath him. The backup officer behind Adrien leans forward to read the credentials. He takes 1 step back. Nobody speaks. The badge reads, Adrien Cole, District Attorney, City of Harmon, the same office currently overseeing the misconduct review of Grayson's entire department. Grayson stopped a man outside an elementary school. That man prosecutes officers like Grayson for a living. The silence stretches for 4 full seconds. On Bodycam, those 4 seconds feel like a year. Then, from the other side of the parking lot, a small voice. Dad? Lucas Cole, 8 years old, backpack on, standing at the top of the school steps. He has been watching. He doesn't run. He just stands there, looking at his father beside the police cars. And on the far side of the lot, half hidden behind a minivan, a woman. A parent. Phone raised. She has been recording since the second police cruiser arrived. Adrien picks up his credentials. He closes the briefcase. He straightens his jacket. He looks at Grayson one more time. I'll see you through proper channels, officer. The consequences begin before Grayson even gets back in his car. But what those consequences reveal about the system that created him, that story is far more complicated than one bad cop in a parking lot. Before we talk about what Grayson did, we need to talk about who he did it to. Because this wasn't just a case of wrong place, wrong time. This was the worst possible person, on the worst possible day, in the worst possible parking lot. Adrien Cole didn't stumble into the DA's office. He built his way there, case by case, year by year, conviction by conviction. He grew up in Harmon's East Side, the same neighborhoods his office now serves. He watched his uncle get stopped 3 times in 1 month, walking home from work. He watched nothing happen to the officers who did it. That memory didn't break him. It focused him. He went to law school on a full scholarship. He joined the city prosecutor's office at 26. By 30, he had the highest conviction rate of any junior prosecutor in the department's history. By 34, he was leading the Public Integrity Unit, the division specifically tasked with prosecuting police misconduct. He didn't transfer out of that unit when he was appointed DA. He expanded it. In his first 8 months as district attorney, Adrien Cole's office filed formal charges against 6 officers across 3 precincts. 2 were convicted. 1 plea bargained. The remaining 3 cases were still active, pending review at the time of the parking lot incident. Active cases. In Grayson's department. Now here is the detail that changes everything. 2 weeks before the parking lot, every supervisor in Grayson's precinct received an internal memo. It came from the department's legal liaison, It outlined the DA's ongoing review. It listed the DA's office by name. It included a photograph of Adrien Cole. Grayson received that memo. He signed the acknowledgement form. His signature is dated 14 days before he pulled up to Westfield Elementary. So the question that investigators will later ask, the question that will echo through every disciplinary hearing, is not whether Grayson should have known who Adrien was. He did know. The question is something far more unsettling. Did he stop Adrien despite knowing? Or did something in him not register a well-dressed black man as the same person in that memo? Both answers are damning, for different reasons. One suggests deliberate intimidation of a city official. The other reveals a bias so deep it overrides conscious knowledge. Either way, Grayson's career was over the moment he stepped out of that cruiser. But Adrien Cole had been carrying the weight of this city's broken system long before that afternoon. The person who understood that most clearly wasn't a judge, or a journalist, or a colleague. It was an 8-year-old boy with a backpack, standing on the school steps, watching his father hold his ground. Every headline will focus on Adrien Cole, the district attorney. Very few will ask about Adrien Cole, the father. That cost, the one that doesn't show up in any filing, any report, any disciplinary record, is the part of this story that matters most. Lucas Cole is 8 years old. He is in the 2nd grade. He likes comic books, dislikes math homework, and every Tuesday he gets a window seat on the ride home because his father picks him up on Tuesdays. This was a Tuesday. Lucas came through the school doors with his backpack bouncing. He was looking for his dad's SUV. He found it. He also found 2 police cruisers, flashing lights, and 3 officers surrounding his father in the parking lot. He stopped at the top of the steps. He didn't cry. He didn't call out. He just watched. For 6 minutes, Lucas Cole stood completely still and watched officers treat his father like a suspect. He is 8 years old. He will not forget this. Adrien saw him the moment he appeared at the doors. He made a decision in that instant: stay calm, stay measured. Not for the officers, not for the camera, not for his office. For Lucas, because a boy takes his cues from his father, and Adrien refused to let his son's first memory of injustice be his father, losing composure under it. They drove home, mostly in silence. Lucas had his forehead against the window. Adrien kept both hands on the wheel. Then, about 4 minutes from home, Lucas spoke. "Daddy, were you scared?" Adrien didn't answer right away. He changed lanes. He exhaled slowly. He chose his words the way he chooses words in a courtroom, carefully, because they will be remembered. "I wasn't scared," he said. "I was angry. There's a difference." Lucas thought about that. What's the difference? Scared means you think something bad is going to happen. Angry means you know something wrong already did. The car was quiet again for a full minute. Then Lucas said, quietly, still looking out the window, "Those policemen were mean to you." "Yes," Adrien said. "They were. Are you going to do something about it?" Adrien looked at his son in the rearview mirror. "That's my job." Lucas nodded once. Satisfied, he went back to looking out the window. That conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. It will likely shape Lucas Cole for the rest of his life. But here is what Adrien has never said publicly, what his closest colleague revealed only after the case was closed. When Adrien got home that evening, he sat in the parked car alone for 11 minutes before going inside. The composure he held in that parking lot has a price. It always does. What happened the next morning, when the body cam footage was officially requested, is where the story shifts from personal to systemic. The body cam footage was requested at 8:47 the following morning. By 9:15, 3 people in the DA's office had watched it in full. By 9:16, nobody was speaking, because the footage didn't show a misunderstanding. It didn't show a tense situation that escalated unexpectedly. It showed something far more deliberate, a sequence of decisions, made one after another, each one worse than the last. Here is exactly what happened, minute by minute. At 3:31 p.m., Grayson's cruiser turns onto Westfield Avenue. The school dismissal hasn't started yet. Parents are beginning to gather in the pickup lane. Adrien's black SUV is parked legally, on the street, 40 feet from the school entrance. Adrien is standing beside it. Jacket on, phone in his pocket, waiting. Grayson slows. He doesn't stop because of a traffic violation. He doesn't stop because of a noise complaint. He doesn't stop because of any observable incident. He runs the plate. The plate comes back clean. Registered owner, Adrien D. Cole. No warrants, no flags, no history. Grayson gets out of the car anyway. That decision, made after a clean plate return, is the moment investigators will return to again and again. At 3:33, Grayson approaches Adrien on foot. His body cam is active. His first words are not a greeting. "Sir, why are you just standing here?" Not can I help you? Not is everything okay? Why are you just standing here? Adrien answers calmly. He explains he is waiting for his son. He gestures toward the school. He names his son's classroom teacher without being asked, a detail that Bodycam audio captures clearly. Grayson does not acknowledge the explanation. He asks for ID. Adrien asks why. Grayson says he is conducting a wellness check on the area. There is no record of any wellness check being dispatched to Westfield Avenue that afternoon. Investigators check the dispatch logs 3 times. At 3:35, Grayson radios for backup. The stated reason logged in his radio transmission is suspicious individual near school premises. A man waiting for his child in a school pickup lane. The backup unit arrives at 3:38. A second officer exits the vehicle. Then a third. 3 officers. 1 man with a briefcase. At 3:41, Grayson tells Adrien he is being detained. The entire sequence, from plate run to detainment, takes exactly 10 minutes. 10 minutes to move from a clean plate return to 3 officers surrounding an innocent man in front of his son's school. Every step was captured. Every word was recorded. Every decision was documented. And that documentation would have stayed buried, the way these things often do, if it weren't for what one officer didn't know was already happening 8 complaints ago. Matthew Grayson had been here before. Not this parking lot. Not this man. But this moment. The complaint, the report, the departmental review. He had been here 8 times in 3 years. 8 times. And not once did it cost him anything. That is not an accident. That is a system working exactly as it was designed. The first complaint came 14 months into Grayson's service. A 31-year-old black electrician named Darnell Reeves was stopped on his lunch break, questioned for 20 minutes, and told to keep his hands where Grayson could see them while eating a sandwich outside his own work van. Reeves filed a formal complaint the same afternoon. It was marked unsubstantiated within 6 days. The second complaint came 4 months later. Different man. Same pattern. The 3rd, 5th, and 7th complaints share one detail that nobody flagged at the time. Nobody connected. Until Adrien's investigators pulled all 8 files and laid them side by side. 3 of the 8 complainants were waiting to pick up children. Not loitering. Not causing disturbances. Waiting. For their kids. Outside schools. The same behavior. The same profile. The same officer. 3 separate times. And 3 separate times, the department looked at those complaints and looked away. Each dismissal followed the same internal language. Officer exercised reasonable judgment. No policy violation identified. Complaint closed. Copy, paste. Repeat. The department had a word for what Grayson was doing. They called it community engagement policing. The community had a different word for it. Now here is what makes this systemic, not just individual. Grayson's supervising sergeant reviewed every single complaint. He signed off on every single dismissal. That sergeant was promoted to lieutenant 7 months before the Westfield parking lot incident. His promotion paperwork cited his unit's low disciplinary rate as evidence of strong leadership. A low disciplinary rate, built on 8 buried complaints. When Adrien's office pulled those files, they didn't just find a pattern of bias. They found a paper trail of institutional protection. Documented, signed, dated, filed. The department didn't fail to see what Grayson was doing. They saw it. They covered it. They rewarded the people who covered it. That is what Adrien Cole was standing against in that parking lot. Not one officer with a bad attitude. An entire architecture of impunity, 8 complaints tall, 3 years wide, built one dismissal at a time. The question now wasn't whether the department would try to protect Grayson again. The question was whether they still could, because by the time the sun rose the following morning, that choice had already been taken out of their hands by a woman with a phone and 14 million strangers. Her name was Sandra Okafor. She was parked 14 spaces away in a gray minivan, waiting for her daughter's after-school program to finish. She had started recording when she saw the second cruiser arrive. She didn't know who Adrien Cole was. She didn't know he was the district attorney. She just knew what she was watching looked wrong, and that wrong things disappear when nobody records them. Sandra uploaded the video at 6:44 p.m. from her kitchen table. She didn't write a caption. She didn't tag anyone. She typed 7 words and hit post. This happened today outside my kid's school. By 9 p.m., the video had 40,000 views. By midnight, it had crossed 2 million. By the time Adrien's alarm went off the following morning, the clip had been watched 14 million times across 6 platforms. His name was the top trending search in the city. His office line had received over 300 calls overnight. The footage was clean, steady, uncut. 4 minutes and 18 seconds of a composed man in a suit being surrounded by officers outside an elementary school, doing nothing, saying little, standing still. That stillness is what broke the internet. People weren't just angry. They were precise in their anger. They counted the officers. They noted the clean surroundings. They screenshotted the school sign visible in the background. They did the math in real time, and the math was damning. Then, at 4:53 a.m., before most of the city was awake, the police union released a statement. It defended Grayson. It described his actions as consistent with protocol for assessing unknown individuals near sensitive locations. It called the public response an emotional reaction to an incomplete narrative. It asked for patience while the department conducted its own internal review. That statement was posted at 4:53 in the morning, before any investigation had begun, before any footage had been formally reviewed, before anyone had spoken to Adrien Cole in any official capacity. The union had chosen their position before they knew the facts. That statement, intended to slow the momentum, accelerated it. By 7 a.m., the union's words were being quoted back to them in national headlines. Legal analysts were on morning television. Former prosecutors were using phrases like official intimidation and pattern of targeted harassment. 3 city council members called for an emergency session before noon. Adrien's phone didn't stop. He read the union statement once. He set his phone face down on his desk. He turned to his chief deputy and said 4 words: "Pull everything on Grayson." The department had spent 3 years protecting Matthew Grayson from consequences. They had 14 hours before those consequences became unavoidable. What happened inside that precinct, behind closed doors, away from cameras, is the part of this story the department hoped would never surface. Internal Affairs opened the formal file at 7:22 a.m. By 11 a.m., it was effectively closed. That turnaround, less than 4 hours, is almost without precedent in the department's history. Cases like this typically take weeks, sometimes months. Sometimes they simply stall until the public moves on. This one didn't stall, because the evidence wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't a matter of competing accounts or conflicting witness statements. It was bodycam footage, dispatch logs, a signed memo acknowledgement, 8 prior complaints, a clean plate return followed by a detainment. The file didn't need to be built. It was already built. At 11:14 a.m., Grayson was called into a closed-door meeting with the deputy commissioner and 2 internal affairs investigators. He walked in with his badge. He walked out without it. The meeting lasted 19 minutes. Grayson was placed on unpaid suspension, pending formal termination proceedings. He was told to surrender his service weapon. He was escorted from the building through a side entrance, not the main lobby. That detail mattered to the people watching. Using the side entrance meant the department didn't want him seen leaving. It meant they were already managing the optics, already calculating how much distance to put between the institution and the man they had protected for 3 years. Grayson's colleagues reacted in ways that revealed as much about the department as the incident itself. Several officers said nothing. They kept their heads down. They finished their shifts. A vocal group gathered in the break room within an hour of the suspension. Their position was familiar. Grayson was being sacrificed. He was being made an example because the target happened to be powerful. They said it wouldn't have made headlines if it were anyone else. They weren't entirely wrong about that last part, but they were using it to argue against accountability rather than for consistency. There is a difference. Then, at 2:47 p.m., with no announcement, no statement, no explanation, a senior officer named Lieutenant Gerald Marsh submitted his resignation. Marsh had been with the department for 19 years. He had supervised Grayson's unit for 14 months. He was the officer who had signed off on 6 of the 8 prior complaints. He didn't cite the Grayson incident in his resignation letter. He cited personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. His resignation was accepted immediately. No press release, no farewell gathering, no commendation for years of service. Just a signature on a form and an empty desk by end of day. The department wanted this contained. They wanted it surgical. 1 badge surrendered, 1 resignation accepted, story managed. What they didn't anticipate was a district attorney who had no interest in letting it be managed. The city would hear from Adrien Cole directly, not through filings, not through intermediaries, not through carefully worded departmental statements. In his own voice, at a podium. The following afternoon, the press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. Adrien arrived at 1:51. He didn't review notes in the green room. He didn't rehearse talking points with his communications director. He stood at the window for 7 minutes, looking at nothing in particular, then straightened his tie and walked out. The room was full, every seat taken, cameras along the back wall, reporters standing 3 deep along the sides. The city's police commissioner sat in the front row, not at the podium, not beside Adrien. In the audience, like everyone else. That seating arrangement was not accidental. Adrien placed a single sheet of paper on the podium. He looked up. He waited for the room to settle completely. Then he began. He did not open with his experience. He did not open with Grayson's name. He did not open with outrage. He opened with a number. 41. He let it sit in the air for a moment. That is the number of use of force complaints filed against officers in this city's 3rd precinct in the last 36 months. 41 complaints. 11 formal reviews. 0 terminations. Until yesterday. The room was absolutely still. He never raised his voice. Not once. He spoke for 11 minutes. He named no villains. He expressed no personal grievance. He did not describe what it felt like to stand in that parking lot. He did not mention Lucas by name. He talked about policy. Specifically. Surgically. He outlined 3 structural failures. The complaint dismissal protocol. The promotion criteria that rewarded low disciplinary rates. And the absence of any independent oversight body with actual authority. Then he announced what his office intended to do about each one. A mandatory external review trigger for any officer with 3 or more bias-related complaints within 24 months. New promotion guidelines that would require misconduct history disclosure. A civilian oversight board with subpoena power. Something the department had blocked twice in the previous 4 years. He had the legislation drafted before he walked to the podium. A reporter near the back raised her hand. "Mr. Cole, do you intend to pursue personal legal action against Officer Grayson?" Adrien looked at her for a moment. "My office pursues justice on behalf of this city's residents, all of them. What happened to me on Tuesday happens to men in this city who don't have a title after their name. My job is to make sure the title doesn't matter, in either direction." He picked up his single sheet of paper. "Thank you." He left the podium. He hadn't used the paper once. The room took 3 full seconds to respond. Then it erupted not in chaos, but in the specific noise of people who just witnessed something they know they will remember. The department had hoped for containment. What came next was the opposite of contained. Matthew Grayson filed for arbitration 16 days after his termination. He lost. The arbitrator's ruling was 11 pages. The conclusion was 1 sentence. The termination is upheld in full. Grayson's union covered his legal fees. They released no further statements after the ruling. The officer who had been described as acting consistent with protocol was quietly removed from every piece of union literature within the month. That is how institutions abandon the people they once protected. Quickly, silently, without acknowledgement. Lieutenant Gerald Marsh never returned to law enforcement. His pension was reviewed as part of the broader departmental audit. 3 of the 6 complaint dismissals he signed were reclassified as procedural violations on his permanent record. The 7 other complainants, the men Grayson had stopped, questioned, and sent home with nothing but humiliation and a buried form, were each contacted directly by Adrien's office. They were told their complaints had been reviewed, reclassified, and formally acknowledged. For most of them, that acknowledgement was the first official communication they had received since their original complaint was dismissed. Several of them wept. The Civilian Oversight Board passed City Council with 14 votes to 3. It held its first formal session 60 days after the parking lot incident. Its first case involved a complaint filed 8 months earlier by a black schoolteacher stopped outside a different elementary school in a different precinct. The pattern, it turned out, was not limited to one officer. Sandra Okafor was invited to the signing ceremony when the oversight legislation was formally enacted. She sat in the 2nd row. She brought her daughter. And then there is Lucas. 3 weeks after the parking lot, Lucas Cole came home from school with an art project. His teacher had asked the class to draw someone they looked up to. Lucas drew his father. In the picture, Adrien is standing beside a car. There are police lights in the background, 2 small red and blue scribbles. Adrien is drawn tall, briefcase in hand, facing forward. At the bottom, in careful 2nd-grade handwriting, Lucas had written a caption, "My dad." He stayed calm. Adrien framed it. He hung it on the wall of his office, not behind his desk, not in a corner, directly across from the door. It is the first thing anyone sees when they walk in. He has never explained why he chose that spot. He has never needed to. Here is what this story was always about. Underneath the badge, the credentials, the footage, the headlines. It was about what a man decides to be in the moment, when the system shows him exactly what it thinks of him. Adrien Cole already knew what the system was. He had spent his entire career inside it, dismantling it from within, one case at a time. What changed on that Tuesday afternoon wasn't his understanding of the problem. It was the city's. If this story moved something in you, share it. Not for the algorithm. For the next person who needs to know that staying calm is not the same as staying silent. And that sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can do is simply open a briefcase. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.